We had a few more classic matches today. What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Picks here. We're going to be going over the final third round matches and taking a look at our round of 16 picks. I'm actually going to keep this video separate. I know I had said before I was going to combine them, but last night's video was pretty long, so I didn't want to combine it into like a 2-hour video. I think it'll be good to keep them separate. So make sure you look out for the first part of our round of 16 picks. This is part 2 for the bottom half of the draw. Let's take a look at the draw. And here's a look at our third round records. I finished with a winning record 8-7. Pamplemousse at 2-5. Didn't get the second part of the third round records in. Been a little bit missing in action. Hopefully we hear from the Pamplemousse soon. Let's take a look at the draw. And here's a look at Zverev's quarter of the draw. The first match we're going to look at is Humbert playing Cerundolo. Humbert able to get through a tricky match against Shevchenko. We talked a little bit about Shevchenko going into this match and what we could expect from his legs here. He did play that tricky first round match against Arnaldi. That was the first round match where it was delayed. I think it was delayed first because of rain, and then it was delayed because the lights, they didn't have a court with lights or something, so they had to wait and be the last match on. Thought it was going to be a tough one for him to get through Shelton. He puts out a superhuman effort, playing some great tennis, able to get through Shelton in 3 sets. Shelton doesn't really play that well here in Miami, but still a great win for Shevchenko. He comes out here, and we're wondering how he's going to look physically playing here. And honestly, didn't see much to kind of make me second guess that he wasn't going to be able to play a third set. The one thing that I do want to bring up is Humbert and his first serve, his serves and service games. They were so impressive. 14 aces, served at 67% for his serves, but won 97% of those points. That is huge. Makes it so hard to get a break against him. And credit to Shevchenko, he had one break point and he converted it. He was able to go up 3-1 in the second set, but Humbert just a little too strong, able to come back, win that set in a breaker. 67% too on second serves won. So just so much pressure for Shevchenko to have to break the serve or win it in a breaker. He's not able to do it. Loses in that breaker 7-2, and Humbert advances 6-4, 7-6. He takes on Cerundolo, and this match was kind of a weird match. There's a lot of back and forth here. It looked at first that it was just going to be a roll for Cerundolo. Cerundolo gets out to a 6-0, 3-1 lead, and you're really feeling that, Medvedev just a little too tired. This is like his third tournament in about 4 weeks. It's been a lot of tennis for him. That tough grinding match against Sinner in the Indian Wells final. But he starts to dig deep, and you start to see the reason why, Medvedev is a Grand Slam champion. He digs really deep to start to push Cerundolo. He knows he doesn't have his best. He knows he's not at 100%, but he's able to dig and get that second set and really make Cerundolo think about this. The third set was a little bit back and forth here. A lot of flashy shots. Medvedev kind of imposing his long, they call him the octopus, with his long arms. He's able to impose that on the Cerundolo game. Looking at the stats here, Medvedev serving at 62%, winning 57% of those. Only 41% won on the second serve. Cerundolo, 68%, winning 58% of those first serves. And second serve points is 60%. That's pretty big. Cerundolo ending the match with 37 winners to the 32 winners of Medvedev. And important to note that there were 11 breaks in this match. You don't generally see that many breaks. Medvedev matches usually do have breaks, but it's usually him breaking. But 11 breaks from those guys. So a very long and kind of like drawn out weird match. Cerundolo calling for the trainer at one point. I do question his ability to come through in this match. Let's take a look at their head-to-head here. We have a 1-0 for Cerundolo. Cerundolo able to win in the Olympics in Paris in the second round on clay, 7-5, 6-7, 7-5, and we all know that the clay is a little bit more suited for Cerundolo. He prefers that surface more. So I'm not sure how much we can weigh a 2024 clay court match compared to their hard court meeting here. Looking at each guy, we have Cerundolo at 6-3 on the outdoor hard courts. He beat Taranti in the second round, and then Medvedev in 3 sets in the third round. Humbert, on the other hand, 7-6 on the outdoor hard courts, beating Diallo in the second round and Shevchenko in the third round. Looking at their Indian Wells results, Cerundolo had with that tough Draper loss in the third round of Indian Wells, and Humbert with the tough Michelsen loss in 3 sets. For me, I'm gonna go with Humbert. I didn't really like what I saw from Cerundolo. You know, if he was able to hold on and win that in straights, I think I would have been a little bit more convinced. But see him kind of not throw away, but blow that lead. A set in 3-1, he's cruising. Medvedev throws a few crazy shots at him. Then he starts to get a little bit rattled. He's yelling at himself. He's yelling at his coaches. I don't know how much I can pick a guy like that, that might be a little bit volatile, getting through some of these matches. I like Humbert. I thought he served really well today. I think he's really feeling it on these courts. I'm going to go with Humbert to win in 2 tough sets. Next match, we have Zverev playing Halys, and Halys Majchrzak, really nice win for Quentin Halys to get through this match. We were curious about how Majchrzak was going to recover from that grinding and grueling Lerner TN match. And the one thing that I noticed the minute he walked out was he had that right knee taped right under the knee. So I was questioning, how is his movement going to look? From the first points, didn't really see much of a difference there. I started to see the difference when he got pulled out wide to the forehand. So when Majchrzak is pulled wide to the forehand, he likes to slide out to that shot. He was not doing that today. He restricted himself from being able to do that. There were some shots that Halys was able to open the court up and start to target that side that Majchrzak would just let the ball go and not try to slide out and get the ball back. So definitely got to keep an eye on that to see how he is going forward in the clay season. 2 things that I liked that Halys did. Number 1 was starting to figure out and target that right leg a little bit and see if he can open the court up and make Majchrzak move to that side there. Majchrzak really struggling with that shot. And then 2, Halys started to pull up on the pace a little bit. He realized that when he was giving the pace to Majchrzak was able to move him around using his pace against him. But the minute he started to kind of pull back on the pace of the ball, Majchrzak wasn't able to really do anything with the ball, and that allowed Halys to stay in some longer rallies and then start to dictate on his own terms as well. Majchrzak was up 5-2 in the first set, and Halys was able to get 13 straight points. That's pretty impressive there, and honestly, that was the big turning point of the match. It looked like a pretty straightforward set for Majchrzak. It looked like it was going to be maybe a 6-3 set for him, but Halys able to turn that one around, win it in a breaker. Majchrzak didn't have enough to get through that second set, loses it 6-1, and Halys moves on to play Zverev. Zverev taking on Cilic, and this match, gotta give Cilic a lot of credit here. This was a pretty impressive match from him. I thought the Cilic return was very, very impressive. Just the way, we talk about how well Alexander Zverev serves. 19 aces in this match, served at 69%, won 89% of his first service games, but this was still a 3-set match. That's very impressive stuff from Marin Cilic. He was reading a lot of the Zverev serves today, and most of the second serves and the first serves were coming back to Zverev, really making him hit some tough shots off those serves. Zverev able to get that early break in the first game of the first set, and honestly, I kind of feel like if he didn't get that, we might be talking about a Cilic round of 16 match here. So he's able to get that early break, kind of lets him settle in, starts to play his game. He's moving Cilic around, looks good. He's dictating, gets a second break, wins the set 6-2. Then they're back and forth in the second set, and Zverev had chances in that 5-all game to break, and 5 break point chances for Zverev in that 5-all game for Cilic, and Zverev not able to convert any of them. Honestly, most of them were Cilic playing really well. There was one that sticks out in my mind. It was Zverev had like a short ball, and instead of trying to rope the forehand, he goes for a drop shot, thinking, like, hey, like, Cilic, the older guy, has trouble maybe moving up and back. I'm going to challenge that there. Cilic able to get up to it, makes Zverev hit a tough shot, and is able to win the point and save the break point. And honestly, we're talking about he basically was saving a straight set win for Zverev. Then we get to the Zverev service game, and we see this all the time. Player has opportunities in the previous game to break. They don't break. Now they come back and they get broken. Zverev gets broken there. I feel like I see this all the time with Zverev, though. Where he has to hold a must-hold game to force a breaker. He's been serving well the whole match, and then all of a sudden he gets broken and loses the set. He lost on a double fault, too. That's a little bit discouraging as well. But he's able to come back in the third set, gets a break early, which is very nice, that you're able to kind of fight off and win and stay on top of Cilic and not let him kind of get this confidence. Zverev with another chance to break in the next service game of Cilic, but not able to convert there. He's able to hang on, has some easy holds at the end. His last 2 service games, he's able to hold at love, so not really much pressure from the Cilic return there. But we got to credit Marin Cilic. I mean, to me, Zverev, a great serving day, almost at 70%, winning almost 90% of those first service points. 48% won on the second serve, so that maybe could be a little bit better. 19 aces, but for Cilic to be able to have 1 break and a set is very impressive for him, especially at his age coming through. So nice showing there for Marin Cilic. Let's take a look at Halys and Zverev. No head-to-head for these guys, which is kind of a little bit surprising to me since both have been on tour for a while. We have Halys, who is at 15-8 on the outdoor hard courts. He's coming through off of a first-round win over Draxl, a second-round win over Fokina, and the third-round win over Majchrzak. His only set lost was a tie-break set to Liam Draxl. Zverev, on the other hand, is 13-4 in the outdoor hard courts. He's coming off a straight set win over Martin Dam and a 3-set win over Marin Cilic. And, kind of 2 similar styles with the big server. Obviously, Cilic a much better returner and ball striker than Martin Dam for now. We remember that Zverev was able to get to the semifinals at Indian Wells, losing to Sinner. And I picked him here. I still think he's going to be able to make it out to the finals here. I look forward to that Sinner-Zverev semifinal rematch. But for now, I'm going to pick Zverev. I think this is going to be pretty straightforward here, especially after that close call with Marin Cilic. Give me Zverev in straight sets. Here's a look at the Zverev quarter with my round of 16 picks. We would have an Humbert Zverev quarterfinal. I mean, this draw really shaping out for Zverev. Would be very disappointing if he wasn't able to get out of this quarter, but I see him getting out of here pretty comfortably. I don't think Halys has any anything that he can offer on the return side. Somebody that's going to beat Zverev is someone that's going to have to neutralize his serve, make him play some of those longer points. We talked about how Sinner does such a good job at getting the serve back in play and making Zverev, not giving Zverev those 1-2 punches off the serve. And Zverev has to win a few longer points, and most of the time he's not able to do that against the bigger guys like Carlos and Sinner. But I don't think either Halys or Humbert or even Cerundolo are going to be able to do that. So Zverev's probably getting out of this quarter. Let's move on to the next part of the draw. Here's a look at Sinner's quarter of the draw. And the first match we're going to take a look at is Terence Atmane taking on Frances Tiafoe. Atmane able to get through a very nice match against Felix Auger Aliassime. And honestly, guys, if you look at the statistics here, there's nothing separating these guys. And it looks like you would guess, if I showed you the numbers only, you would guess that Felix won this match. He won 73 points compared to Terence Atmane 74. He had 11 aces. He served at 71%. He won at 72% of those points. His second service points, he won 63%. He was 33% conversion rate on break points. Probably could have been a little bit better. But looking into this a little bit deeper, guys, what we had said before, I thought that the Felix forehand to the Atmane backhand was going to be the key. Today, it was the opposite. It was the Atmane forehand to the Felix backhand that was able to solve some of these problems. Now, in the second set, Felix was able to find his forehand. He was stepping inside the court. He was dictating, and he looked like he had figured everything out, but not to be. Atmane takes his level up an extra step. At 2-3, they're sitting down, and Atmane calls for the trainer, gets his shoulder taped. You start to think, oh boy, maybe there's something wrong. Maybe he's not going to be able to finish. But then he runs off, breaks Felix, holds to get to a 5-2 lead, and then wins for the 6-3 third set. So very nice win for Terence Atmane to get through this match, and definitely a confidence booster for him. A very disappointing match for Felix Auger Aliassime. Again, losing in the third round of Miami. Got to do a little bit better on the outdoor hard courts for Felix. Frances Tiafoe able to get through a thrilling match over the defending champion Mensik, and this really felt like at the end of this match they go into a breaker. Tiafoe wins 13-11, but Tiafoe goes up, I believe it was 6-3 in the breaker. Let me just double check here. Yes, 6-3 after back-to-back double faults from Mensik. You could feel the nerves. It was very weird. Mensik felt like he was playing some clutch points, throws in 2 double faults, then plays this very, very tight point against Tiafoe. Tiafoe wins that to go up 6-3. Mensik then turns around and wins his next 2 service points. And as Tiafoe is serving at 6-5 on his match point, a baby starts screaming, crying. So, second serve, and all of a sudden, this baby that maybe has been quiet the whole match starts to distract Tiafoe. Tiafoe's still able to get the serve in, but misses the next ball. And you think, wow, maybe it's not meant to be here for Frances Tiafoe, but he's able to get it done. He hangs tough here. Guys, some of these points in the breaker, when they got to 6-all, past 6-all, the points in the breaker were phenomenal. Just a lot of patience from Tiafoe. And that was something that we talked about. Was he going to be patient, or was he going to just start to rip shots left and right? Because we've seen that Frances Tiafoe, and on some days he's able to connect with those, and he's able to win matches in impressive fashion. But against a player like Mensik, a guy who's not going to give you a lot of errors, you want to stay consistent, and then you want to force him into those errors. And Tiafoe was the aggressor in this tiebreak, and I love that. I love the mentality of, I'm gonna go down swinging if I have to. He played smart, but he also played aggressive. He took offense when he got the opportunities to do so. The one shot that I really liked was not the usually he kind of powers through this big forehand cross court, but he was doing a lot of these short angle crosses to kind of pull Mensik off the baseline. And I really like that he was able to do that. And then even if Mensik got that ball back, Tiafoe had the open court to then hit his big shot. And I think that's something that his coaches are starting to impose in his mind, that you need to open the court up first and then use your big forehand. Don't use the big forehand to open it up. Use your spin to get the court open and then use the big forehand to put the ball away. I was really impressed with everything in this match from Tiafoe, and I think he's going to come into this match against Atmane with a lot of confidence. Let's take a look at their head-to-head. They actually did play earlier this year in Dallas. That was a 3-set win for Tiafoe, 4-6, 6-2, 6-2 over Atmane, and that was an interesting match. We knew at that point Tiafoe was still struggling a little bit to get some wins, and this Atmane match, obviously Terrence Atmane has that big forehand. He's able to hit through the court. Indoors, he can hit a little bit cleaner as well. But Tiafoe able to handle him 6-2, 6-2 in the final 2 sets of that match. Looking at their hard court records, we have Atmane, who is sitting at 7-7 on the outdoor hard courts, and Tiafoe, who is 13-5 now, with pretty consistent results here, making the finals of Acapulco, the 4th round of Indian Wells, and now the 4th round of Miami. Excuse me. I'm really curious to see how the aggression and the lefty forehand of Terrence Atmane is going to be neutralized by Frances Tiafoe. We know that Tiafoe has the athleticism and the speed to track down a lot of these shots and make Atmane hit 1 or 2 extra balls. And you look at Atmane's losses. He was on a 3-match losing streak coming into Miami, losing to Kekmanovic in Acapulco, Dimitrov in the 1st round of Indian Wells, and Darwin Blanche in the 1st round of the Phoenix Challenger. I gotta go with Tiafoe here. I think he's riding high. I think that win over Mensik is going to give him a ton of confidence. He's going to come in here. He's going to play with confidence. That forehand is going to be booming from Frances Tiafoe. So give me Frances Tiafoe to win this in straight sets. Next match, we have Jannik Sinner taking on Michelsen, and Michelsen getting a nice win over Tabilo in the round of 32. We've talked about Tabilo. He's playing great on the clay courts. He came out, beat Hadar in straight sets at Indian Wells, and then gets a nice win over Rublev here in the round of 64. And one thing we noted that Tabilo was doing really well was he was starting to step up on the baseline and move the ball around, using the pace and starting to dictate a little bit more than we were used to seeing from him on the clay courts. And he was able to do that at the beginning of this set, getting a break and going up 4-1 in the first set. He looked pretty good. It looked like he was controlling most of the points, but Michelsen able to turn this match around in the second set, winning it 6-3. One thing that I want to note, both these guys' first serves was 59%. Michelsen winning 83% of his first service points, Tabilo winning 71% of his first service points, and both of them were at Michelsen was at 56% second service points won, and Tabilo 58% second service points won. Tabilo only converting 1 of 9 break points. That's a little bit concerning. Michelsen converting 2 of 9 break points. And those were enough to get the win. Tabilo didn't serve bad. I felt like he played a strong enough game to put himself in a position to win, he just seemed to get worn down a little bit by Michelsen. And I loved like the Michelsen shots, how big and heavy they were for him to just hit through Tabilo. And finally, it looked like those Tabilo legs were really starting to give out. He gets broken in the middle of the third set to give Michelsen a 5-3 lead. And Michelsen able to hang on for the win. Sinner and Moutet was a pretty quick match. Moutet having some nice flashy shots here, but not enough to really bother Sinner that much. I don't think this match was ever in doubt for us here. Sinner coming out, he's really dictating a lot with the forehand, with the return, just really pushing Moutet around a lot. Moutet very defensive, and that's the last place you want to be against a guy like Sinner, is in a defensive position. Sinner able to get the break early on in the second set and just held on to it to win the match. Not much resistance here from Moutet. I believe he saw one break point and wasn't able to convert it on the Sinner serve. Sinner serving very well, returning very well. He's looking very good after coming off the Indian Wells win. Now let's look at the head-to-head with Sinner and Michelsen, and it's 2-0 for Sinner, of course. We know Sinner's going to have a pretty big head-to-head edge against some of these guys. They played 2 matches in 2024. One was in Cincinnati. Sinner won 6-4, 7-5 in the second round. And one was at the U.S. Open. Sinner was able to win 6-4, 6-0, 6-2. One thing that I want to note is Michelsen is pretty good friends with Lerner Tien, and we remember that Lerner Tien played Sinner in the quarterfinals of Indian Wells. Now, obviously, Lerner Tien losing 6-1, 6-2, you probably are thinking, like, what could someone like that offer Michelsen? And honestly, maybe not much, but I definitely think that there's a phone call between the two to talk about maybe some patterns that Lerner picked up from Sinner, things that Lerner was able to recognize in that match and maybe could have implemented something a little bit sooner than, maybe being down a set. So just giving Michelsen a little bit of a heads up on some of those things. I really think they're very close friends. So I really think there is a phone call between the two, at least talking about the match itself against Sinner. Looking at Sinner, he is 15-2 on the outdoor hard court, beating Jumer and Moutet here in Miami, and of course winning Indian Wells over Medvedev in that tough straight set match. Michelsen, on the other hand, is 11-5 on the outdoor hard courts, beating Bellucci, Norrie, and Tabilo. Having 2 3-setters, though, against Norrie and Tabilo, we got to take a look at how Michelsen is going to fare maybe with his legs after playing 2 tough matches. He made it out to the 4th round of Indian Wells, losing to Medvedev, but not before getting a win over Taylor Fritz and Auger Humbert, who we see is also here in the round of 16 as well. One more thing that we want to know is Michelsen has about 5 hours and 40 minutes on court compared to Sinner's 2 hours and 21 minutes. These are hot days, so we'll have to keep an eye out to see if these start to catch up with them. Although I would guess that this is going to be a night match. I think it's very interesting that the Sinner camp probably has requested to have these night matches. Remember, we talked a little bit about that on whether they were going to want to play during the day or at night, and I said that I feel like the Sinner camp is probably requesting that he do all night matches. They know that he doesn't do that well in the heat. We saw it in Australia. We saw it a little bit towards the end of that Indian Wells final. So definitely something we want to keep an eye out as we start to get to the hot summer days in the U.S. for sure. Nothing more that I really have to say about this match. I'm going to go with Sinner. I think it's going to be straight sets. I don't think there's going to be – I think it's going to be like maybe 3-2, 6-3, 6-2, or 6-4, 6-2, maybe one break in one set and then 2 breaks in the other. Sinner's just returning too well, and there's not really much that I feel like Michelsen can do to affect Sinner and kind of bother him a little bit. If this match is during the day, I maybe can see Michelsen kind of hanging around and seeing if Sinner gets a little bit tired or fatigued or starts cramping. So that could be a possible factor. I do think this is going to be at night. If it's at night, it's going to be Sinner in 2 easy sets. So give me Sinner in straights. And here's a look at Sinner's quarter with my picks. Still a lot of Americans around, which is really nice to see in Miami, especially after all of the upsets. Sinner, obviously the draws opened up a little bit for him. If he plays Tiafoe, I can maybe see Tiafoe posing some threats for one set. I don't know if I really see Tiafoe beating Jannik Sinner, especially with the form that Sinner is in. I think that would be a very tall task for Tiafoe. So I see Sinner getting out of this quarter, which it's a pretty nice draw for him so far. He hasn't played anyone inside the top 30. You got Jumer 76, Moutet 33, Michelsen 40. If he plays Tiafoe is 20 in the world. If he plays Atmane is 53 in the world. So it would still be someone outside the top 30. And then assuming Zverev gets through that match, he would have to play the number 4 player in the world. So really interesting to see how this draw kind of shapes out here. But I'm gonna say Sinner's gonna get out of this draw here and play Zverev in the semis. Thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. Quick reminder, we do have a part 1 for the round of 16 picks. That is the top part of the draw, the matches that are going off tomorrow. So make sure you check that out. This video is for part 2, the bottom half of the draw. Thanks again, guys, and I'll see you in the quarterfinals.